Hello and welcome to Super Great Kids Stories, wise tales from storytellers around the world, which will make you laugh and sometimes cry. Recommended for ages 5 to 105. I'm Kim and I love stories. Hello, Super Great Kids. Happy New Year! I wonder what adventures this year will bring and what new skills you're going to learn. Maybe you can start learning some storytelling skills. We're looking at fairy tales around the world, and we're going to start the new year with a roar of dragons. Not one, but 2 dragons who belong in a story from Romania told by Emily Hennessey. Hurrah! I love dragons. Here are a couple of facts about Romania. It's a country in Eastern Europe. The name Romania came from the Romans, who ruled the region a long, long time ago. In present-day Romania, you can visit Bran Castle, which is also known as Dracula's hangout. Dracula is a vampire character, and do you know what he eats? That's right, he eats human blood. Ew. Let's get back to something nice and safe sounding, like dragons. Just before Emily starts the story, though, let's try improving our storytelling skills. How many different ways do you know to start a story? For example, in Japan they say mukashi, mukashi. Or you could say, are you sitting comfortably? Am I sitting comfortably? So there's lots of ways. How many ways can you think of? Well, we have a quick word with the grown-ups. Ready? Off you go. Hello, Super Great Kids, I'm back. I wonder what you remembered. Did you remember fodo, fodo, fodo in Irish? Or había una vez? That's Spanish. Or hadithi, hadithi. That's what they say in Kenya. Or davnim davno. That's Russian. And each storyteller has their own special way of starting a story. Some say, once upon a time. Some say, quick, crack. And others say, mouth open, story jump out. I wonder how many different ways you remembered. It's quite tricky. So well done if you got 3, or even 4, or even 2. But you only need one way to be able to start your story. And now, it's time to give a warm welcome to talented storyteller who told you Misery and Coyote and the Big Old Tree, all the way from the beautiful Lake District in England. Here's Emily Hennessey.
Hello, my name is Emily, and I'd like to tell you a folk tale, a story that's told and known in lots of different countries, but this version comes from Romania. There was once a woman and a man who lived in a little house with a little garden. Her name was Mary, and his name was Bakur. They loved each other very much, but they had a sadness in their hearts because they'd always longed for children, and no children came. One day, they were out in their little garden, digging up potatoes and carrots from their little vegetable patch when an old, crooked woman walked past, her face as wrinkled as a walnut. "Please," she said, "I'm very thirsty. Could I trouble you for a glass of water?" "Of course," said Bakur. "Please, come and sit in our kitchen and rest your feet." "And you look hungry too," said Mary. "I'll bring you some soup and bread." The old woman rested and ate and drank, and when she'd finished, she said, "You've been so kind, thank you. Now, tell me, what is it you wish for more than anything in the world?" "That's easy," said Bakur. "We wish for a child." "Ah, yes, a child, good, good. But tell me, what else do you wish for? Mary said, well, that's easy too. Another child. Good, 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 good. But tell me, what else do you wish for more than anything in the world? Bakur and Mary laughed, and together blurted out, children, 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 children. The old woman thanked them again for their generosity, and then continued on her journey. The next morning, Mary and Bakur woke up early, because their house, which was usually so quiet, was full of noise. Thudding, bouncing, clattering, pitter-pattering, laughing, singing, wailing, shouting. They stepped out of their room and couldn't believe their eyes. There were children racing up and down the stairs, dancing in the hallway, climbing up the curtains, skipping and swinging from the lights and balancing on the banister. And downstairs they found even more children, tumbling out of cupboards and leaping through windows and hiding in baskets. There were gurgling babies crawling about. There were tottering toddlers. There were big children carrying little children, children running and racing and squawking and shrieking. The garden was full of children too, playing, and even children climbing all over the roof. Children, 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 children. All day long, Bakur and Mary played with the children and cooked for the children and cleaned the children and told the children stories and cuddled them. Oh, it was wonderful. And by the end of the day, they were exhausted. They finally found somewhere for all the children to sleep, tucked up in a basket, a box, or a drawer, or in a cupboard under the stairs. There were children everywhere. And now, at last, they had the chance to count them all. How many children do you think they counted? 20? 50? Well, they counted 100 children. 100 children, said Mary. We are so lucky. But we've only just got enough food for ourselves. How on earth are we going to feed 100 hungry mouths every day? Tomorrow, said Bakur, I'll set out into the world. I'll see if I can find some work. So, the next morning, Bakur packed his rucksack with useful things, a spade and a long length of rope. And Mary said, you'll get hungry. Take this, handing him a hunk of cheese. He kissed Mary goodbye and hugged his 100 children, and then, with his rucksack slung over his back, set off down the road. He walked. He walked all day, over the hills and through the valleys. As the sun was beginning to set, he reached a village. But apart from a pen full of bleating sheep, the place seemed very quiet. All the curtains were drawn in the windows. All the doors were bolted shut. The only person to be seen was an old shepherd with a long grey beard, walking towards him. I don't know who you are, but you shouldn't be here. It's not safe. Why is it not safe? Asked Bakur. Because as soon as the sun sets, he'll be here. He comes every night and helps himself to 3 of our sheep. He says if we don't have the sheep ready for him, he'll take our children instead. That's terrible, said Bakur. Has no one tried to stop him? Oh, no, he's far too dangerous. We just leave out the sheep and lock ourselves away. Well, what would you pay me if I managed to stop this thief? Oh, you'll never stop him. But if you did, we'd reward you very well. We'd give you 10 sheep for every one of your children. Bakur smiled. I'll see what I can do, he said. The old shepherd stroked the heads of a few of the sheep, then quickly hurried away. Bakur stood and waited. The darker it got, the more anxious the sheep became, stamping and bleating. And then, all of a sudden, they fell silent. The ground had started to shake. The trees were quivering and quaking. Heavy footsteps were approaching. A dark silhouette of a figure rose up over the hill. Something huge and scaly, with jagged spikes across its back and a long, swishing tail. The dragon strode down the hillside towards the village, roaring and breathing fire. Towards the sheep, towards Bakur. It stopped, now towering over Bakur, sniffed the air and lowered its head, its bright red eyes staring at Bakur, breathing through his big nostrils. Bakur could feel the dragon's hot breath against his face and see hundreds of sharp teeth in the dragon's wide, snarling mouth. "I'm hungry. Little man, shall I eat you as well as my sheep?" No. You won't be stealing any sheep tonight, or ever again, in fact, said Bakur as bravely as he could. And why would that be? Because I said so, and because I'm extremely strong. I'm much stronger than you, in fact. Oh, really? You certainly don't look it, you little squirt. So come on, show me then. Show me how strong you are before I gobble you up. I will, said Bakur. I'll show you that I'm so strong I can squeeze water from a stone. Impossible! Even I couldn't do that. Bakur reached down and quickly pulled the hunk of cheese from his bag. He held it up high and with all his might squeezed until, sure enough, water dripped down his arm and splashed onto the ground by the dragon's feet. Oh, wow, you're stronger than you look, little man. You'd better come with me and meet my mother. She'll know what to do with you. So, Bakur found himself following the dragon, up over the hill, through the forest and into the mountains, where there was an enormous cave. And in this cave sat the dragon's mother. If the dragon was big and ferocious, the dragon's mother was 10 times so. With terrifying spikes across her back, gleaming eyes, hot smoke from her nostrils filling the cave. Bakur stepped in and tried not to cough. She sniffed him all over. Bakur smelt her stinking breath and felt her whiskers and sharp bristles against his skin. He tried not to tremble. So, he's strong, is he, this tiny little thing? Said the mother. Well, little man, I could do with some muscle around the place. My son is lazy. But you could be my servant. First, prove yourself. Let's see who can throw my son's club the furthest, him or you. The son picked up his wooden club. It was huge, much bigger than Bakur himself, and very heavy. The dragon swung it around his head a few times and then hurled it out of the cave and over the trees. Bakur and the young dragon set off to find it. It was a long walk, and Bakur's legs ached. Where the club had landed, there was now a small crater in the ground.
"Your turn," said the dragon. "She'll be expecting you to throw it all the way back to the cave."
Bakur stared at the huge club. There was no way he'd be able to even lift it, let alone throw it. But he had an idea. "I'll just wait until the moon reaches the top of the sky," he said. The dragon looked confused. "Well, because then I can throw the club over the moon and back to the cave, proving to your mother that I can throw it much further than you. I've done it before, loads of times. Sometimes my aim isn't perfect and things end up getting stuck on the moon, but I'm sure that won't happen with your lovely club." Now the dragon looked worried. It had taken him ages to make that club. He didn't want to lose it, especially not on the moon.
I tell you what, forget about throwing it over the moon. I'll just throw it back to the cave and we'll tell my mother that you threw it from much further away."
"Oh, okay, if you like," shrugged Bakur, and the dragon hurled the club back. That night, back at the cave, Bakur was given a little bed and a blanket in the corner. Here he slept. In the morning, the mother dragon sent her son and Bakur off to fetch water from the river. The dragon marched off ahead, holding an enormous wooden bucket under each arm. Down at the river, the dragon scooped up a bucket full of water. Bakur watched. There was no way he'd be able to even lift the other bucket, let alone fill it full of water.
"Your turn," said the dragon.
Bakur reached into his rucksack and pulled out the spade. Then he began to dig, digging and digging into the muddy riverbank.
"What are you doing?" asked the dragon.
Well, it seems silly to only take back these 2 piddly little buckets with water. I thought I'd just dig up the whole river to bring back instead. Then we won't have to keep coming back, will we? The dragon imagined the whole river running through the cave. There'd be water everywhere, and he'd probably end up being the one having to mop it all up.
"Oh, don't worry about that. I tell you what, I'll just bring back this second bucket instead. That'll be plenty."
The dragon filled up the other bucket and carried them both back to the cave where his mother was waiting.
"Next job, fetch firewood," she said.
So Bakur followed the dragon to the forest this time, where effortlessly the dragon ripped up a mighty tree from the ground and slung it over his shoulder.
"Your turn."
Instead, Bakur reached into his rucksack and pulled out. What do you think? Can you remember what else he'd packed? Yes, that's right, the rope. The dragon watched, confused, as Bakur tied one end of the rope around a tree trunk, and then went to the next tree and tied the rope around that one too, and then another and another.
"What are you doing?"
Well, it seems silly to just take back 2 piddly little twigs. I thought I'd rip up the whole forest instead and bring that back to the cave. The whole forest, thought the dragon, and I bet I'll be the one who has to chop it all into firewood. It'll take me forever.
"Oh, no, don't bother with that, little man. I'll just take another tree. That'll be plenty."
That night, the 2 dragons sat by the fire talking, and Bakur lay in his bed, pretending to be asleep. The dragon's son was telling his mother everything that had happened that day.
"Either this little man is very, very strong, or he's very, very clever. Either way, he's dangerous. You brought him here, so you get rid of him. And here, use this."
Bakur heard the scrape of the big wooden club against the ground and heavy footsteps coming towards his bed. The dragon lifted the club and smack, whack, wallop, thud, bash. Bakur, who had quickly hidden a log under the blanket and slipped under the bed, lay there, feeling the whole cave tremble. In the morning, the dragon sat laughing by the fire. When Bakur sauntered over, yawning and stretching, their eyes nearly popped out of their heads. They couldn't believe he was alive. "Morning," he said. "How? What? Why? How did you sleep?" said the mother dragon. "Not too badly, I suppose, although I think there was a little flea or a fly jumping around on the blanket. I'm sure I felt something. It didn't bother me much, though." "A little flea? A little fly? You better leave us alone. Please, just go." "Oh, well, if you like," said Bakur. "But first, I'll need paying for all of my hard work." The mother dragon pulled a huge sack of gold coins from the corner of the cave. "Please, take this." That's not quite enough," said Bakur. "But if your son carries it home for me, then we'll call it quits." And so it was that Bakur left the dragon's cave and walked down the hill, followed by the young dragon carrying the sack of gold for him. "We have a little stop to make first," Bakur told the dragon. In the village, people saw the dragon walking towards them and began to panic, screaming and running inside. "It's okay," shouted Bakur. "You're all safe, and so are your sheep. This dragon promises never to steal any more sheep or children or come anywhere close ever again. Don't you, dragon?"
"I promise," said the dragon.
The men, women, and children all cheered and hugged each other. Then the old shepherd stepped forward with a huge smile on his face.
"Oh, thank you," he said. "Now for your reward. 10 sheep for every one of your children, wasn't it? So tell me, how many children do you have?"
"Well, I actually have 100 children," said Bakur. The shepherd's smile froze. "Oh, but don't worry. I don't need a reward. I have enough gold now to buy as many sheep as I could possibly need." The villagers cheered again, and Bakur, followed by the dragon, walked over the hills, through the valleys, all the way back to his little house. When his 100 children saw him coming, they squealed and screamed and shrieked with excitement and came tumbling and somersaulting and skipping out of the house to greet him.
"Why are they all so happy?" asked the dragon.
"Well, they've been very hungry," said Bakur. "But they've been promised their favourite food for dinner tonight. Roast dragon." The dragon turned pale. He dropped the sack of gold and turned and ran as fast as he could. As far as I know, the dragon and his mother have never been seen since. As for Bakur and Mary, they used the gold to buy sheep and goats and cows and hens and food and clothes and books and toys and everything their 100 children needed. And I'm very pleased to tell you that they all lived happily ever after.
Oh, thanks very much, Emily, for sharing that story. How would you feel if you had 100 children in your family? Would that be a good thing? Or would it be a bad thing? And why? Ask your grown-ups what they think. Just imagine making breakfast for 100 children plus 2 grown-ups. That makes me tired just thinking about it. Do you think you could draw a picture of Bakur and the dragon? Send it via our website at supergreatkidsstories.com and we can share your pictures with other story lovers on our Facebook page, facebook.com/supergreatkidsstories. And if you like the stories Emily tells, she and her husband Nick Hennessey run a storytelling festival in the Lake District, which is happening in June. It's called Stealing Thunder. So make a note in your brand new diaries of that one. Emily and Nick will be there. And of course, so will Super Great Kids Stories. That's it for this week. Thanks to all owlets for your super great support. I hope you found our Christmas thank you to you, the recording of our live show. And thanks to everyone for sending in pictures for us to post on our Facebook page and our Instagram gallery. Our pick of the week picture for this week goes to 9-year-old Marilyn from Joshua Tree in California for her beautiful illustration of Nora and the Ackee fruit. I just love all the delicious fruit you've drawn hanging from the tree, while her sister Angel stands on one side of the river pleading with her selfish sister Nora to give the river just one Ackee fruit. It's a great picture of a great story. Thanks for sharing that, Marilyn. And finally, a big thank you to all Super Great Owlets and their families for supporting our podcast and making it possible for us to find new storytellers. If you'd like to support us on Patreon or on Apple Podcasts, we'll say hello to you on the show. You can hear our stories advert-free, and you'll have access to 45 Owlet bonus stories and at least 30 super great scary stories. Plus, you'll get access to our Super Great Kids Stories Express with short introductions, no adverts, purely story. Great for listening to stories back to back. And did you know that you can now gift a Patreon membership? Visit our website for more details at supergreatkidsstories.com. Keep telling your stories and singing your songs. Thanks again to our storyteller this week, Emily Hennessey, for her dragon story from Romania. If you're an owlet, remember to look out this weekend for your scary story and your bonus story. This podcast was produced at Wardour Studios in fabulous Fitzrovia in London.